Game of Thrones had one of the worst endings of all time, and yet one of the most beautiful. The series went from being universally loved to being universally hated, and in doing so, it united different kinds of people from all over the world in their hatred for the final season of Game of Thrones.
Beautiful.
But what went so horribly wrong?
Everything.
Well, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who I'll call D&D from now on, wanted to make a television series adaptation of the Song of Ice and Fire books, and it turned out to be a massive hit. Girls liked it.
Jaime and Cersei are brother and sister.
But they were just doing it in the tower. That is so twisted. Go on.
And guys liked it too.
Yeah, boy.
But George R.R. Martin wasn't actually finished writing the books, which meant D&D eventually had to start writing their own material for Game of Thrones. And yeah, that didn't end so good.
You are my queen.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Danny kind of forgot about
No! No!
It eventually got to the point where not even the cast could hide how much of a disaster Season 8 was going to be.
And are you happy with how things ended?
Yeah. Best season ever! It's the best. It's the best season ever.
Are you all happy with the outcome of the show?
Some people will be satisfied and others not so much.
It ends brilliantly.
Liar! And on top of that, there was even a petition with over 1.8 million signatures, demanding that Season 8 of Game of Thrones be redone with competent writing.
Ouch.
Not much happens in the first 2 episodes of Season 8.
Nothing ever happened!
Except when Theon and his ninja buddies somehow managed to sneak onto one of the Iron Fleet ships to save his sister Yara, even though that ship is right outside King's Landing and is quite close to at least 2 other ships. Probably many more.
With 1,000 ships.
But in episode 3, The Long Night, that's where the fun really begins. And we get to see some of the worst war strategies ever put on screen. They place their entire army outside of their protection of the walls, and then the first thing they do is a suicide charge with the Dothraki cavalry, while they're shooting trebuchets that are likely to cause significant friendly fire. And then when they're dead, the trebuchets are sitting defenseless on the front lines, which makes them absolutely useless. The same goes for the catapults, which never even get used because they don't have the massive reach of the trebuchets. We then see that Dany abandons the original plan where she and Jon are supposed to wait with their dragons out of sight, so they can be ready to kill the Night King when he appears.
For what? Why?
Because Dany suddenly realizes that the plan she agreed to of sending the Dothraki on a suicide charge might actually result in them dying.
One thing that they couldn't have foreseen was Dany's reaction to seeing the Dothraki decimated. And I think that Dany can't bring herself to just watch them die. And so the plan starts to fall apart the second she gets on her dragon, so he does too. And then we take it from there.
Dany must not be aware of the little known fact that people die if they are killed. After clashing with the undead, the human army has to retreat into the castle they should have been in from the beginning. And this all takes a long time, of course, because the entire army has to retreat through 2 small openings, which takes up so much time that Grey Worm decides to sacrifice his men, so that the rest of the army has time to retreat back into the castle. They then try to signal to Dany to set the trenches on fire, but she can't see the signal because of the snowstorm, so they try to do it themselves, but fail miserably. Grey Worm then gets the idea to use the witch to set the trenches on fire, and she walks over to the trenches as if she's got all the time in the world.
Take a second to look awesome. Time to go walk in slow motion so you
Ain't nobody got time for that!
We then see that Jon Snow was sitting on his dragon right next to the trenches, so all they had to do was, tell him to light the trenches on fire, and it would be solved. The undead army then just stands around for a while, doing nothing, which of course leaves the perfect opening for the humans to start manning the walls and put up their defenses.
But the people are retarded.
So the humans quite literally just wait around until the undead are right at the gate before they start to man the walls.
On the walls!
Good thinking.
Later we see that Daenerys kind of forgets that she's right in the middle of an undead army, and she only figures it out once all of them start clamping up on her dragon. She also falls off the dragon, but Sir Friendzone conveniently comes to save her, and she's also saved by the editor, who saves her life by cutting away right before she's slaughtered by these undead. And to top it all off, they've all unanimously decided that the safest place to put all the women and children when facing an enemy who can raise the dead is to put them all in a crypt, where they'll be surrounded by corpses.
We're in a crypt. Nobody thought of that. He's bringing all the dead people back to life, and they put the women and children in a crypt with all the dead people. So, Tyrion is smart, but I guess not that smart.
And let's not forget about the master plan, where they plan to use Bran as bait, because the Night King wants Bran's ass so bad that he's going to hunt him down in the middle of the siege, instead of, waiting around until the coast is actually clear.
He'll never expose himself.
Yes, he will. He'll come for me.
Why?
And he does this because Bran's got such a cool story or something, I don't know.
What does he want?
An endless night. He wants to erase this world, and I am its memory.
That's what death is, isn't it? Forgetting. Being forgotten. If we forget where we've been and what we've done, we're not men anymore. Just animals. Your memories don't come from books. Your stories aren't just stories. If I wanted to erase the world of men, I'd start with you.
Surprisingly powerful.
And they protect Bran with some archers, who should have died many times over, but are saved because the editor cuts away right before they die.
What are the odds?
So it irritates me when I'm watching a movie or reading a book, and the hero is going through incredible dangers, him and his 6 buddies, and none of them die. Maybe one of them gets wounded at some point, but they all survive pretty much untouched at the end.
The characters are constantly being overpowered by the massive horde of undead, to the point where their castle is so overrun by the undead that you can barely see a single surviving human on the screen. But that doesn't matter, because the Night King conveniently walks into the castle and then Arya kills him.
I was pissed. I was pissed that it wasn't me killing the Night King. I would have given you
almost an entire decade of build-up for the White Walkers. And it's all gone in one episode.
Winter is coming. Winter is coming.
Winter is coming.
Winter is truly coming.
Winter is coming!
Winter is coming.
Winter is coming!
Winter is coming. Winter is coming. Winter is
gone!
What?
It's gone.
Winter is
gone.
The most dangerous force in the world, the massive undead army hell-bent on wiping humans from existence, was defeated in one battle because a little girl poked one guy with a knife.
That sucks. It does.
And little girls killing big guys is apparently not that uncommon here in Westeros.
You're a big guy, are you?
No one's going to understand that reference.
I kinda forgot what it's called, but this scene, it reminds me of something pretty good.
It was pretty good. I mean, yeah.
Anyway, Arya's ninja school master taught her quite well, because she somehow manages to sneak past all the undead behind the Night King when she goes in for the kill.
She seemed like the best candidate, provided we weren't thinking about her in that moment.
Right, yeah. Of course.
At this point, I think it's safe to say that Arya has pretty much become a war god who can kill anyone with ease.
She's completely unstoppable and she never loses her cool, and that's amazing, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yes! Very exciting.
She's also really cool and badass, and the show makes sure you see that. Needlessly endangering the lives of other people just so you can do some archery practice is really cool.
Pretty cool.
Seriously though, Arya's whole story is centered around her revenge for the killing of her father. So personally, I think it makes more sense for her to kill Cersei, or better yet, die trying. But apparently she's destined to kill the Night King.
You said I'd shut many eyes forever. You were right about that too.
Brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Even though she has had nothing to do with the White Walkers, whereas most of Jon's arc has been about protecting the wall and fighting the White Walkers. But he's too busy screaming at the dragon and stuff. I guess he must have watched some of those videos about bear encounters.
Perkele, siihen koske, saatana.
To be fair though, he does try to kill the Night King.
I'm fast as fuck, boy.
But the Night King does a vololo, and then Jon Snow is saved from certain death by the editor.
What a nice guy.
The next day we find out that only half of the Unsullied and Dothraki are dead.
Half are gone.
The Dothraki all seemingly die in the cavalry charge.
What they see is just the end of the Dothraki, essentially.
And Grey Worm literally sacrifices his army by removing their one and only option of retreating back to safety. Not to mention that even if these men somehow manage to get back into the castle, then they're still most likely going to die because, well, look at this.
It's raining men. Hallelujah. You will die.
Game of Thrones was never about characters miraculously surviving the impossible.
Never, no.
So what was it about?
Mother dragons return home to her little baby-ass dragons or some shit like that.
Word. Yeah, but more specifically, it was about throwing kids out of windows, stabbing the unborn, burning kids alive, mothers blowing up their daughter-in-law, kids jumping out of windows, and smashing heads. Basically, if you're living in the world of Game of Thrones, then you'd want to hide your wife and hide your kids, because not even the little ones were spared in this story. In other words, actions used to have consequences in this story, but then things changed, and the only ones who died in the Long Night battle were half of the Unsullied and Dothraki, some Northmen, as well as Friend Guy, Eye Patch Guy, Little Girl Guy, Theon, and Sir Friendzone.
My buddy.
The writing is so good that the only thing that could top this is if Daenerys somehow lost one of her dragons because she kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces.
That's what death is, isn't it? Forgetting.
I remember everything.
No wonder they used Bran as bait to catch the Night King. And this guy cannot die.
Anyway,
not only did she have the high ground and should be able to see those ships from all the way up there, she was also fully aware of just how dangerous the Iron Fleet is. And she was quite literally briefed about the Iron Fleet earlier in the exact same episode.
And the Golden Company has arrived in King's Landing, courtesy of the Greyjoy fleet. The balance has grown distressingly even.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron...
No.
That is how intelligent the characters are in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. And the show even tells the viewer this.
I used to think you were the cleverest man alive.
Either you knew Cersei was lying and let me believe otherwise, or you didn't know at all, which makes you either a traitor or a fool.
I was a fool.
Not for the first time.
Yes, Tyrion, Varys, and Littlefinger all used to be the big brains of the show, but in the last couple of seasons, that all went down the toilet. Because D&D never knew what to do with them, so they just kind of let them do nothing for a while, and then they killed them off.
Grey Worm leads Varys, hands bound, down the beach.
I told you what would happen if you betrayed me.
You did.
Lord Varys, I, Daenerys of House Targaryen, first of my name, breaker of chains and mother of dragons, sentence you to die.
Drogon spews fire on him, but we don't watch our old friend burn. Instead, we see the reactions of those who knew him. Tyrion is heartbroken. Jon is disturbed. Grey Worm sees this as the just execution of a traitor.
Cersei never came to help fight against the White Walkers, as she promised Tyrion, and she even sent Bronn to kill him and Jaime at one point. But before Dany attacks King's Landing, he somehow thinks that it's a good idea for him to appeal to Cersei's better nature.
If not for yourself, then for your child.
Truly heartwarming.
Yeah.
Bro, not only did she lie to you and try to kill you, she also thinks that you killed her father, not to mention the fact that you're the right-hand man to the woman who is likely to end her very life in the near future. Even if it's possible to reason with her, then you're definitely not the man for the job. And yes, it turns out that Cersei doesn't care, and then she chops off Missandei's head, which leads to war. We then see Daenerys attack the Iron Fleet, and the Scorpions that easily shut down the dragon earlier somehow manage to miss every shot this time.
Good job!
All we need is one good shot.
This is going well.
And what's even worse is the fact that the vast majority of the Scorpions never even attempt to shoot at the dragon. Seriously, they don't even move at all.
Do something!
And look, the scary Golden Company has also stationed all of their men outside the protection of the walls.
Genius.
But half of them are dead in a matter of seconds anyway, and the rest seems to die without putting up much of a fight.
20,000 men, is it?
Yes, Your Grace.
Horses?
2,000.
You sure about that?
And the same can be said about the King's Landing army, which seems to be compromised of poorly trained men equipped with a single sword, no shield, and a piece of armor so thin that even the slightest touch from a sword kills the person wearing the armor. But Cersei's army eventually gives up and the bells are rung, signaling the surrender of King's Landing. Hey, maybe you should ring the bell too.
Right.
Daenerys then becomes queen and everyone lives happily ever after.
Kidding.
After winning the war, Dany decides to make things personal. For some reason.
And then she sees the Red Keep, which is to her the home that her family built when they first came over to this country 300 years ago. It's in that moment on the walls of King's Landing when she's looking at that symbol of everything that was taken from her when she makes the decision to make this personal.
And yeah, that makes her decide to treat all of King's Landing as their own personal barbecue grill.
I'm talking good old barbecue.
And that all makes perfect sense, of course, and so do these words of wisdom.
Soldiers killing soldiers, that's what war is.
Well said, DP Weiss, well said.
The good guys are behaving like the bad guys.
Yes, that is also true. And we see that not only has Daenerys turned into a bloodthirsty psychopath, no, pretty much all of her army has turned into psychopaths as well. And we also see that they really, really love to rape.
I like rape.
In fact, they love rape so much that they're willing to kill the second in command after Dany, Jon Snow, just so they can continue raping some more.
I guess.
And when Arya is almost in reach of Cersei to kill her, then the Hound tells her that no, it's actually too dangerous to go after Cersei after all. And yeah, she agrees and walks away. But then she dies. No, she's still alive, but then she dies. Oh no, wait, she's still alive, but then she dies. No, she's still alive and somehow she finds a dazzling white horse in the middle of nowhere.
What the fuck is going on?
The Hound brought her with him all the way from Winterfell to King's Landing. But then right at the end, he decides that it's actually a bad idea for her to avenge her father. Yes, the assassin that can hide her own face, becoming practically invisible, and has some of the best fighting skills in the world, is apparently not up to the task of killing Cersei. And he then continues on and fights his zombie brother alone. And to all of you who think the writing has been bad in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, get this. He has been burned alive by his brother, afraid of fire all his life, and then died because he jumped in the fire to kill his brother.
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Just like when Euron Greyjoy, god of the seas, died on a beach. Wow. That time when he conveniently washes up on shore at the exact same location as Jaime Lannister.
Heard you have no cock.
And then they have their fight, where Jaime kills Euron. Yes, after fighting the White Walkers at Winterfell and taking Brienne's virginity, Jaime decides to go back to King's Landing to reunite with Cersei again. If you know what I mean. But really, Jaime, when a woman sends a hitman to kill you, then you should probably take the hint and realize that maybe she's just not that into you. But apparently she is, but it's too late, and they both die romantically together.
That's the dramatic irony of this scene, you see. After a lifetime of walking in and out of buildings, they ultimately get killed by one.
The characters are just so wonderfully consistent. He broke his oath and killed the Mad King because he didn't want to see innocent people die.
Precious Renly commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, and children burned alive. Would you have done it?
A few moments later.
If not for yourself, if not for her, then for every one of the million people in that city, innocent or otherwise.
To be honest, I never really cared much for them. Innocent or otherwise.
He don't give an F about nothing.
And the same goes for Jon Snow, because he apparently doesn't even know if it's right to needlessly slaughter an entire city full of innocent civilians.
Would you have burned the city down?
I don't know. I'm kind of retarded.
I suppose Ygritte was right after all. Jon Snow truly knows nothing. Or he does actually know 3 things. Number 1, he knows about the importance of allies.
If we're gonna be allies in this war, it's important for the Northerners to see us as allies.
I told you we needed allies.
We need allies. Powerful allies. When I left Winterfell, I told you we need allies or we will die. But more importantly, we need allies.
If you only trust the people you grew up with, you won't make many allies.
That's all right. I don't need many allies.
The fuck you say to me, you little shit?
Number 2, he knows that he doesn't want to be the king.
I never wanted a crown. I told you I don't want it.
It doesn't matter what you want.
I don't want it. I never wanted it. I never asked for it. I don't want them to kneel for me. I don't want it. I don't want it.
And number 3, he also knows who the queen is.
You will always be my queen. You are my queen. You are my queen.
While she is my queen.
Well, who's the queen, Jon?
Daenerys is our queen.
Are you sure?
You are my queen. I don't know what else I can say.
Maybe it's you that's the real queen.
Am I your queen?
Not yet.
Why not?
Anyway, let's not forget that the mass slaughter of the city would have been avoided if he would have just manned up and continued having sex with Daenerys.
She's his aunt.
Some guys find that hot.
Who is a decent person throughout the entire series and somehow becomes a bloodthirsty psychopath right at the end.
Please give me cock.
No.
And the way she justifies her slaughter
It was necessary.
kind of reminds me of Dracula's response to people asking why he tortured and killed so many people.
They had it coming.
And it makes no sense for her to claim that the children's innocence was used as a weapon against her.
Little children burned.
I tried to make peace with Cersei. She used their innocence as a weapon against me.
Because she'd already won by the time she started destroying the children.
I am not here to be Queen of the Ashes.
I'm sorry, but no, there is simply no way she would burn down an entire city full of innocent civilians for no reason.
Ultimately, she is who she is, and that's a Targaryen.
Yeah, okay, so ultimately she's a Targaryen, and that of course means that she has this innate need to commit indiscriminate mass murder for no reason.
Well, that sounds pretty reasonable.
Sure, she is flawed, and she makes some questionable decisions along the way, but it's simply not possible to go through her journey without doing something wrong in the process. Jon Snow is the poster boy for nice guys in this world, and he'll kill kids if he has to.
With luck, you will find the strength to do what needs to be done.
What do I do, Lord?
Destroy the child. Corrupt them all.
Why is that funny?
Well, that's my point. It wasn't right.
Or maybe I'm wrong and it makes perfect sense for her to become a psychotic mass murderer when she hears that her male relative Jon Snow, who has a better claim to the throne, won't have sex with her.
Fuck me!
I'll swing that way.
But seriously though, Jon, you've had sex with her before?
Oh, now that's some penetration too.
And you two apparently love each other, even though your romance is about as convincing as the Star Wars prequels.
I don't like sand.
Me some money!
She's also good looking, and most importantly, you would be maintaining a great deal of peace in Westeros by being with her.
Pussy.
So why not just have sex with her, bro?
Do it.
If we marry them, they could rule together.
She's his aunt.
They never stopped a Targaryen before.
No, but John grew up in Winterfell. Is marrying your Aunt common in the north?
Ah, okay, he doesn't want to be with her because it's a bit uncommon.
I don't get it!
Jon Snow's lineage as a Targaryen was supposedly so important that it was the deciding factor for George R.R. Martin to let D&D make an adaptation of the Song of Ice and Fire books.
And he said, who was Jon Snow's mother? And it was a test question.
It was that feeling like if you mess this up, it's all going to go away. We had an answer that we thought was right, and it turned out to be the right answer.
But in the end, he was brought back to life for no other reason than to just become a pawn in the game of incest.
What the hell is this plot?
Don't get me wrong, incest drama can be very interesting when it's done well.
There's nothing wrong with any of it.
But this just fucking sucks. After seeing the aftermath of his psychotic queen, Tyrion says,
Oh, hell no!
and becomes a prisoner.
You're just afraid of a woman in charge.
Yeah, what is there? Like some kind of sexist guy thing?
We also get to see that not only is Arya a great fighter and assassin, she's also very intelligent.
I know a killer when I see one.
Arya has a key eye for killers, so when Daenerys burns down King's Landing, Arya picks up on it.
Then after having killed all of her enemies as well as thousands of innocents, Dany lets her greatest threat walk up to her with swords and knives. And then she's super surprised when they kills her.
How could this have happened?
For a moment, neither moves, as if moving will make this real. We see Jon with his hand still on the hilt of the dagger he just lodged in Dany's heart.
They now have to choose a new king or queen to take over the throne. And Tyrion somehow gets to dictate the entire conversation.
From now on, rulers will not be born. They will be chosen.
Dinklage, if he's a prisoner, he can't dictate how the king should be determined to be.
And who do they choose? Well, they choose Bran Stark, of course, because he's got a really cool story.
Stories. There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story. And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
Everyone!
They choose the man who claims not to want the throne, but who went on a several-year-long journey of becoming the Three-Eyed Raven, specifically so he could become king.
Why do you think I came all this way?
The man that tells Sam that Jon Snow is a Targaryen. The revelation that stops Jon from having sexual intercourse with Dany, which ultimately makes her decide to rule through fear, not love.
Let it be fear.
Bran knew exactly what would happen and still chose to give this revelation to Sam, knowing that it would culminate in the death and destruction of King's Landing and its people. And he did all this so that he could become the king.
What a story.
Okay, to be honest, I don't really know what Bran's powers actually are, because it's not exactly laid out clearly, but it's something about him possibly being able to see the past, present, and more importantly, the future. But maybe not. He also remembers everything and likes to occasionally become a bird.
I'm a bird, I'm a bird!
So yes, Bran becomes king, and Sansa somehow gets to have her own independent kingdom in the north, because she says she wants it, and Bran just lets it happen.
Beta!
We then see that the characters we know are conveniently chosen to be the ones making important decisions, and personally I don't see any problem with that. For example, I think it makes perfect sense to choose Bronn as the master of coin.
Man of the world, you're strangely naive.
I've never borrowed money before. I'm not clear on the rules.
Finally, the Unsullied head for North. Arya decides that she'll try the pirate life, and Jon Snow goes with the wildlings back to their homeland. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of Game of Thrones.
Inevitably, Game of Thrones will tear us apart once more.
And let's not forget that people only hated this ending because fans wanted the pretty white people to ride off into the sunset. Yes, Peter, that's why fans hated how the show ended. Because the pretty white people didn't get their happy ending.
That's it. It's Whitey's fault.
I gotta say, Peter, you're coming off as a bit of a C-word. Cut! And let's not forget that Peter is a serious actor who doesn't want to do silly stuff like fantasy.
When I first heard they were interested in me for a fantasy show, I went, ugh, no.
I just think it makes you look like so much more of a cunt.
Daenerys becoming mad like her father could have been a decent choice. However, to build up such a story in a believable way would require different circumstances and many seasons of character development. But D&D didn't want to do any more seasons of Game of Thrones because they wanted to do Star Wars.
I love Star Wars so much. It's my favorite type of Star Wars.
I mean, it's fine if you've grown tired of making Game of Thrones and you want to do Star Wars.
Star Wars?
But you should at least hand over the project to someone who still cares enough about Game of Thrones to give it a decent ending, instead of rushing a half-assed finale to a show you've been working on for almost a decade.
We could have gone to 11, 12, 13 seasons, but I guess they wanted a life.
You wanted it to keep going.
Well, you know, if you've read my novels, you know there was enough material for more seasons. They made certain cuts. David and Dan have been saying for, like 5 years that 7 seasons was all they would go. And we got them to go to 8, but not any more than that.
Let's just say that people weren't very happy about them working on Star Wars.
I hate them.
But it turns out that they didn't get to do Star Wars after all, because they made a deal with Netflix instead. And there's a lot of other problems to talk about in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. For example, the infamous coffee cup.
And there was the coffee cup and
There was also some drama about Jon Snow not saying a proper goodbye to his doggy. But who cares, because cats are obviously the objectively better pet. But unfortunately, it would take forever to go through all of the problems, and ain't nobody got time for that. I was also going to give Game of Thrones a rating, but I kind of forgot. So thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe for more daily videos.
Oh, thank you. I love you. And what about the penises?
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that one too.
You want me to show you my penis?
Penises, dicks, cocks, whatever you want to call them.
Dick. Cock. Dick. I like it.
Well, men's private parts are very important in Game of Thrones.
Cocks are important, I'm afraid.
They're so important, in fact, that they sometimes even magically reappear in places they no longer exist.
Man, I got no dig.
Snip, snip. Am I right, girls?
Some might even go as far as saying that cocks are all that matter in the end.
Maybe it really is all cocks in the end.
This sounds very gay.
Anyway, I was going to write a really good outro for this video, I promise. But I'm sorry to say, I kind of forgot.
Well, that's an excuse I can't argue with. Good night.
It's not good. But it should be, but it's not. It's Game of Thrones. It's not ending well on this show.